Let's talk about one of the most famous rivalries in all of Chinese history. It's a story packed with ambition, brilliant strategy, and just pure, unfiltered rage. And it all leads to this legendary, super tense dinner party, the Feast at Honggate, a banquet that was literally one drawn sword away from turning into an assassination. At the heart of it all is this guy, Shang Yu. You can basically think of him as the Achilles of his day, an undefeated, absolutely terrifying military genius who had just single-handedly crushed the tyrannical Qin dynasty. And yet, at the moment of his greatest triumph, he was furious. Not at the enemy he'd just beaten, but at his supposed ally, a pretty minor commander named Li Yubong. So what on earth made the most powerful warrior in China so angry? Well, believe it or not, the answer isn't some huge betrayal or a complex conspiracy. It all boils down to a simple title, King of Guanzhong. Lu Bang claimed it, and Shang Yu was absolutely convinced it was his. To really get why he was so mad, we have to understand what that title actually meant at the time. Okay, so first things first, we have got to talk about that word king, because what it meant back then is almost certainly not what you think it means today. And that difference, it's the key to this entire story. See, there's this huge gap between our modern Western idea of a king and the reality in China around 200 BCE. We hear king and we're thinking, top dog, the supreme ruler of a country. But back then, a king was much more like a powerful regional duke or a feudal baron. They ruled a specific state, sure, but they were not the ruler of everything. So if you look at the Chinese character for king, Wang, it's a little tricky. It has a couple of meanings. There's a big, broad, almost cosmic one about being the supreme son of heaven. But for our story, the only one that really matters is the narrow political definition, the ruler of a feudal state. And that's crucial. Liu Bang wasn't claiming to be the ruler of all China. The hierarchy was super clear. At the top, you've got Di, which means emperor. A step below that, that's Wang, the king. We actually see this play out right in the middle of the story. The rebellion's figurehead leader, King Huai, is later given an honorary promotion to Emperor Yi. And why? For one simple reason, to make it crystal clear to everyone that emperor outranks king. So if king wasn't the top job, why were there so many of them running around? Well, it all came down to the rebellion's big picture political strategy. The Qin dynasty had unified China with an iron fist, and pretty much everybody hated them for it. So when the rebellion kicked off, the leaders had this genius idea. Let's not just fight the Qin, let's promise to bring back the good old days. And that meant promising to restore the 6 independent kingdoms that existed before the Qin ever came to power. And what do kingdoms have? Kings. So, boom, suddenly everyone was a king. Kings were popping up all over the place as part of this strategy to rally support. It was kind of like a political franchise. You had the king of Qi, the king of Zhao, the king of Han. Heck, they even made enemy generals who surrendered into kings. The title was a political tool, not some unique ultimate honor. But, in this whole crowd of brand new kings, one of them was way more important than all the others. He was the key to making the entire rebellion seem legitimate. See, Xiang Yu's top advisor, a guy named Fan Zhen, he totally got the game. He knew that for their faction to lead the rebellion, they needed a symbol everyone could get behind. They couldn't just look like a bunch of power-hungry warlords. They had to look like liberators. So they cooked up this brilliant little 4-step plan. Step 1, okay, we need a unifying leader. Step 2, let's find a legitimate royal. Step 3, let's specifically pick one from the state of Chu, tapping into this really deep grudge the Chu people had against the Qin. And step 4, the big finish, they find a shepherd who just happens to be the grandson of the old king, and they put him on the throne as the new King Huai. And just like that, the rebellion had its figurehead. King Huai had 0 real power, but his symbolic value, it was off the charts. He was the rebellion's spiritual leader, the face of the revolution. He gave all the warlords, including Shang Yu and Lu Bang, the legitimacy they needed to fight their war. Okay, so we've got this landscape just full of regional kings, all technically united under one symbolic leader. But all that unity was about to get tested by the one prize that would turn them all against each other, the land of Guanzhong. And this created a really interesting political problem, right? If all the old kingdoms are getting their original land back, what in the world do you do with the enemy's home turf?
You can't just give it to one of the restored kingdoms without making all the others furious and jealous.
The solution was pure political genius. Guangzhou, the Qin heartland, became a special prize. It was declared a bonus territory, a reward that would be given to the general who contributed the most to the final victory. This way, nobody could complain about favoritism. It wasn't a gift, it was a prize to be earned.
You know, the later historian Sun Yu put it perfectly. He called this strategy giving away what is not yours to gain a real benefit. The rebellion's leaders were dangling the enemy's land as the ultimate incentive for their own generals. It was a brilliant, no-cost way to motivate everyone.
And you gotta understand, this was the single greatest prize of the entire war. We're talking about the #1 reward. The person who became king of Guangzhou wouldn't just be another regional lord. They would be the one who had earned the ultimate trophy for winning the whole war.
All right, this brings us all the way back to Sang Yu's rage. We've defined the titles, we've set the political stage, and we've established what the grand prize was. Now, let's put it all together. Shang Yu was the one who did all the heavy lifting. He destroyed the main Qin armies in the big, decisive battle. In his mind, he had earned that prize. So when he gets word that Liu Bang, who had taken an easier route and faced way less resistance, had just slipped into Guangzhou and claimed the title king, he didn't see it as treason. He saw it as a heist, a total robbery. He saw a lesser man stealing the reward that he, the greatest warrior of his age, had won with blood and steel. And that is the question that lights the fuse for the rest of their epic conflict. This isn't really a story of good versus evil. It's a tragedy sparked by a deep-seated feeling of injustice over the spoils of war. The fury wasn't about who would rule China, it was about who deserved the trophy. And that perceived theft would plunge the entire nation right back into another brutal war. And just so you know, this whole breakdown comes from the fantastic research of Aiheng Chen, a scholar of Chinese classics from National Chengchi University in Taiwan. Thanks so much for joining me for this.